Good morning. Happy Wednesday. That's right. I said Wednesday instead of Tuesday because today's episode is coming out on Wednesday. As you can tell, if you are watching this on our YouTube or Rumble channel, I am not in the normal home studio as we typically are, which is why today's episode is coming out today and not yesterday. And our episodes that normally come out on Thursday this week will be coming out Friday morning. So I appreciate your patience in me, making sure that you stay tuned. But I also want to make sure, regardless of if I'm traveling forever in the future, I will always get an episode or two out because there's always, like we say, so much that we need to discuss. So today, we're going to talk about what is happening in New York, what happened with the 2025 elections that we saw last night, as well as what is going on in the Republican Party and why is everybody so upset within the party at each other. We're going to talk about that and, of course, much, much more. I'm Bryce Wheeler. Welcome back. This is We the Future. Alrighty, let's jump right into it. Like I mentioned before, we're not in Utah anymore, Toto. This week we are traveling, but we always want to make sure, at least I always want to make sure, that we get an episode out each week. 2 episodes is always the goal, to make sure we discuss and highlight what is going on in our country and what is happening that, in my opinion, is important to discuss. So let's first start with what happened yesterday, or last night, more specifically. We had the 2025 election. Now, of course, there were governor races across the country. There were mayor races across the country. And the biggest one, in my opinion, that happened is the race in the great city, or formerly great city, of New York City. What happened? So Zohran Mamdani is now the newly elected New York City mayor. Now, I don't want to talk about this too much, but what I will say is this. He is an absolute communist lunatic. 100%. There have been so many people who have spoken out about him. There's been millionaire, billionaire donors who have put up some serious cash to try to get this guy to not be elected because he vows such a big threat to the city of New York that he is worth trying to stop. But unfortunately, that was not to be the case. The people of New York City spoke out and used their right to vote who they feel would be their best elected mayor, and they voted Mamdani in. So, with that being said, good luck to the city of New York. If you live there, if you're from there, if you want to visit there, I would probably not for probably the foreseeable future. I think that New York City is going to fall even more further than what it currently has already fell. If, for example, the Democratic Party radical leader, right, Chuck Schumer, if he won't even endorse Mamdani, and that's Chuck Schumer, that should show you or tell you exactly what you need to know. If he won't even endorse Mamdani, but claims that they have a friendly, close relationship, he's probably not somebody that you should elect to be your mayor. But I, like most of you, don't live in the city of New York, so I don't have to worry about this. So for all of you who want to look up a little bit more about Mamdani, you don't have to go far. He's a social media icon, the Democrats proclaim, and he's a failed rapper. That's not a slip of the tongue. He is a failed rapper. Plenty of songs out there that he had put together that you could go listen to. And he is somebody that has teamed up with the other liberal lunatics of the Democratic Party, like Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC, as she's most commonly known. If you're teaming up with those people, fine, good. You just show exactly who you are. But what I think is in my opinion, the saddest part about this entire thing is in 2001, when September 11th happened, the city of New York vowed that it would never forget what happened. And yet now they have elected somebody like Mamdani, somebody who, and it's not just my opinion, somebody who is dividing the Democratic Party, who is somebody that is so controversial and somebody that stands for everything that America shouldn't stand for, and is a outright, clear as day, socialist, communist, all rolled up into one, hip hop artist. He's just a horrible person. And so the city of New York, 24 years later, truly forgot. They forgot what happened on 9/11, and they forgot what they vowed they would never let happen. And now the city of New York is someplace that is going to be fallen. There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that are going to flee New York City and move to other states because they do not want to live in a city that is controlled by Mamdani. Now, this is not just my opinion, it's opinion of a lot of people, but I think it's something where, okay, cool, he's been elected. Let's see what happens in the future. Let's see if all of his things like taxing the rich and making things crazy unbearable for the rich to live in New York, or the prosperous of business and other foundations to live in New York. And let's see how well his policy works on giving out free rent to people in New York City, regardless of their, status being illegal or residents or citizens within this country. Let's see how all of that works. And then we can once again, as we discussed last week, have a clear-cut answer of why socialism and communism never works. And it's a lesson that, unfortunately, New York City is going to learn, and they're going to learn it, as all of our dads said, the hard way. Now, moving on. What is going on in the Republican Party? So some of you might know, some of you may not know, and my job is, as always, to do my best to educate you on what is currently happening. But before we dive deep into what's going on within the Republican Party, I first want to say a couple of different things. Now, it's sad that we live in this day and age that things like this have to be said, but unfortunately they do. And so before we get into everything, I'm going to get out and say them. So first things first, I am a big believer, of course, because I live here in the country of America, and because I stand with and stand for the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and other founding documents that founded this great nation. I stand for the First Amendment, freedom of speech. I think freedom of speech is, if not the most important, I believe it is the most important freedom that we have in this country, because the freedom of speech is the keystone to every other freedom that we have in this country. And so I believe in free speech. I am not an anti-Semite. I believe that you have the right to freedom of religion. I believe that you should have the right to say what you want to say, to practice whatever religion you want to say or believe in. I believe in all of those things. But because of what's going on in the Republican Party right now, if you're going to talk about the things that we're going to talk about today, if you're going to say the things that I'm going to say today on this episode, you are going to be labeled some pretty horrific things. You might be labeled a Nazi. You might be labeled part of the new generation of Hitler Youth. You might be labeled as someone who is an anti-Semite, someone who hates Jewish people or hates Israel, the Holy Land. All of these things is something that is currently going on. And if you're paying attention to all of it, if you're on social media, if you're paying attention to the news, you're not one who is surprised by me saying any of these things. And if you haven't been paying attention, well, hopefully today I can open up your eyes a little bit to what is going on within the Republican Party. So let's start there. Now, With all of that being said, what happened over the weekend and what happened last week? Well, we have to introduce a couple of people in order for this to make sense. So, first person we're going to introduce is Tucker Carlson, which is somebody, in my opinion, who needs no introduction. If you know anything about the Republican Party, the conservative movement, you know who Tucker Carlson is. He got his start on Fox News, like a lot of commentators on the right have. And he's worked his way to be, in my opinion, one of the biggest, if not the biggest voice on the Republican Party. Now, of course, there's plenty of people out there who also speak and are on the Republican side, like Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro. You've got Matt Walsh, all these other people who have very, very big voices. But in my opinion, I think somebody like Tucker Carlson is a huge piece and a huge voice on the Republican side. For example, me, as a kid growing up in Indiana, I remember getting into the truck with my dad and we would listen to NPR News. And NPR News was Rush Limbaugh. It was the Rush Limbaugh days. It was the golden age of radio. And I remember sitting in the truck with my dad, and because I wasn't allowed to touch the stereo, that's what we listened to, regardless of wherever we were going. That and jazz. But Rush Limbaugh was one of the most prolific voices for the conservative movement and just in general for eventually what would spiral into what we have today, the podcast movement, with so many people having their own shows and so many people having their own TV networks where they're able to speak out and voice their opinion, which I think is great. Moving on, as a young adult and a teenager, that's really when I got sucked into Tucker Carlson and Glenn Beck, once again by my father. At night, if it was a certain time, 9:00 at night, Tucker Carlson would come on, and that's what my dad would watch. And so for me, I would like to sit down and watch it with my dad. So I watched the Glenn Beck program. I watched Glenn Beck on Fox News. I watched Tucker Carlson on Fox News. And that then, grew into them leaving Fox News for their own reasons, which we could dive into at a later date. Left Fox News for good reasons and started their own platforms, started their own programs, started their own TV shows and podcasts and radio shows, which have all continued to today. So that's my progression, right? And then eventually as a young adult and now as a, almost in my 30s, I solely listened to people like Charlie Kirk, right? So why do I give you all of that context and background? Because I believe that there are some specific voices within the conservative movement and the Republican Party that are huge voices, that are voices that have been around for many, many years, many decades, that have taken a stand against everything that the left stands for and everything that is wrong with it, what's going on in our country. And one of those voices is Tucker Carlson. Okay. Now, the next person I'm going to introduce is somebody by the name of Nick or Nicholas Fuentes. Now, if you don't know who Nick Fuentes is, that's okay. He's somebody that is new to the Republican Party and new to conservative party. He is somebody who is a couple years younger than I am, who is in his mid-20s, and he is somebody who has caught a lot of attention lately for his show called the America First Show with Nick Fuentes. He is a young man, we'll just call him that, right? Someone who is my peer in the sense of our age. He is somebody who has started recently, back in 2016, when Trump was running for his first presidential election, who has started to support conservatism. That's a hard word to say today. Support the conservative party, to support Republicans, and to be a voice for the Republican Party. Now, he just didn't start in 2016 and gain immediate fame, and here he is today. He's somebody who has had to work for it because plenty of people have tried to cancel him, get him out of the movement, not somebody who we should trust, not somebody who we should listen to. And he's been able to withstand all of that and persevere. And he now has his own show, which you can listen to on Rumble, because other platforms like YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, even though a lot of people listen to him, those platforms have canceled his show and canceled him. And so he is mainly found today on the platform of Rumble. Now, I want to get this out of the way. Okay. I like Tucker Carlson. I've already talked about him enough. I like Nick Fuentes. Now, I'm going to say that with this asterisk. There is a lot of things that Tucker Carlson says and a lot of things that Nick Fuentes says that I do not like, that I disagree with, that I completely stand against, but they both have things that I have heard them say that I do agree with. Now, just because I support what they're doing, because they have the same freedom that I have to have freedom of speech, to say whatever they want, to be able to talk about whatever they want, to be able to interview whoever they want, that is their right as an American citizen. Just like on my show, on this show, if I'm going to have a guest on, I have that same right. If I want to say something, I have the same freedom of speech that is protecting me in this country. But here's the thing that we have to dive into. Recently, Tucker Carlson last week had Nick Fuentes on his show, which caused this whole outrage and spark and division within the Republican Party. Now, if you haven't watched that episode of the Tucker Carlson Network, I would urge you to watch it. Not because in any way, shape, or form am I advocating for anything that was said on there or anything in agreement to what was said on there. There were a lot of good thoughts that were brought by both Tucker and by Nick. But I do think it's important, if we're going to talk about this, you have a little bit of context to what was said during that episode. With that being said, so many people on the conservative side, on the right, have decided to, as of more recently, and when I say recently, this really goes back to when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, so many people on the right were so quick to jump on the board or the bandwagon of Charlie and I were friends, and Charlie and I agreed with each other on 100% of the things that I talk about, or Charlie and I disagreed, or Charlie and I were really close, or Charlie confided in me with this or that information. And there's been so many people that have been out to try to grasp the support of Charlie Kirk post his death that, in my opinion, I don't think it's necessary and I don't think it's needed, but I also think it's happened for some specific reasons. For example, in my opinion, the reason why so many political commentators or people on the right and influencers are vying for the imagery of being associated with Charlie Kirk is because if they can convince you that they are the living embodiment of what Charlie Kirk stood for and believed in, then they can influence you to now believe in what they support. Now, that's my take on the matter. And we've seen this with people like Tucker Carlson, who, it's obvious, him and Charlie were friends. Tucker Carlson spoke with TPUSA at many different events. He had a close relationship with Charlie, even though they had their disagreements. You've seen this with Candice Owens and what she's been talking about more recently. And of course, what she's talking about recently is diving deep into trying to find answers on who or what entity or what group killed Charlie Kirk. Now, we're going to talk about that at a later date. That's an episode that I want to cover, but it just has so much moving parts and pieces to the puzzle, and it's such an ongoing thing that it's just taking a lot of time for me to compile all of the evidence or information to be able to then, get it out to all of you. But you've got Candice Owens, you've got Glenn Beck, you've got Megyn Kelly, you've got a bunch of other people who are now vying for the support of Charlie Kirk after his death. Now, why do I bring up Charlie Kirk? Why do I bring all of that up? Because since Charlie Kirk was killed, since he was assassinated, the right, the Republican Party, we've all been about calling for censorship of people, calling for the bad thoughts of, this is said a lot, just asking questions, right? There's been so many people who have come out and criticized people who are hypercritical of the state of Israel or the government of Israel. You have so many people who are upset about what Candice Owens is doing, what Tucker Carlson is now doing with having Nick Fuentes on his show. You have all of these people that are calling for things like don't listen to me if you're ever going to listen to Candice Owens again, right? Steve Deace, somebody that I've long liked, somebody who is a part of the Blaze Media Group, which is Glenn Beck's company. He's somebody that I like, a conservative Christian podcast host. But yet he, 2 weeks ago, and I even talked about it on an episode last week, he said on his episode, if you're ever going to listen to Candice Owens again, don't listen to me as well. If you're ever going to get rid of both of us, that's fine. He said, as long as you don't listen to Candice Owens, he's okay if you don't listen to him as well, which I don't understand. I really don't. I like Candice Owens. I like what she's doing. Do I agree with everything that she's doing? No. But do I like what she's doing? Yes. Because we talked about it last week. The moment we stop questioning things, the moment that we just roll over and accept the narrative as it is or for what it is, that's the moment that real journalism or real intrigue or real Americans trying to find the truth dies. That's when it dies. So I like what she's doing. And I commend her because she is taking so much crap from so many different people and so many different sides of the political aisle for what she's trying to do, which is uncover the truth behind her friend Charlie Kirk's assassination. So with that being said, I think it's important for all of us, especially if we're going to band together as conservatives and Republicans, we need to hold true to the conservative values. There are specific values that we don't deviate from, that if you agree on, you're probably part of the Republican side. That is something that is important, especially in the world that we live in. We can have our disagreements about X and Y. We can have our difference of opinion about A and B. But as long as we hold true to those standard core principles of the conservative movement, that is when we will stand together and be able to withstand what we're trying to do, which is to fight evil on both sides. Now, with that being said, I don't think of myself as a conservative. I think of myself as somebody who is trying his best to sift through the right and the left and find truth, and to stay with truth, to stand with truth, and to, in my opinion, and what I would like to see done in this country, go back to our founding roots. Go back to the founding roots of America. What were we founded upon? What are the principles that started this great nation? Get back to those. I think that at this point, the conservative party, conservative, right? You're conserving what is there. Well, in my opinion, I don't really like what's there right now. I think we need to restore what America was built upon. And so, I mean, there's different political parties who are claiming that they're for that. I haven't really found one. I still vote Republican because, in my opinion, it's the better party that I want to associate with compared to the Democratic Party. But I mean, we're getting off track from what I want to talk about, but I think it's important. If the Republican Party is going to stand together, we can't stand together while calling people names. We can't stand together while saying, if you don't say this or if you don't believe in this, you're not part of us. You're not a part of the MAGA movement, which in this point in time, pardon my French, who the hell cares if you're a part of the MAGA movement? Trump's a great president, in my opinion, one of the best presidents that I have seen, at least in my life, but we have seen as a country in a long time. You can disagree with me on that. That's fine. I welcome disagreement, right? With that being said, though, who cares if you're part of the MAGA movement, right? Because in the same breath that I like Trump, there's been plenty of things that Trump has done that I am not a fan of, that I am not for. There's been plenty of things that he's promised he'll do that he hasn't done. There's been plenty of things that he said, I will do once in office, or I will expose this, or I will drain the swamp, or I will do that. And he just hasn't done any of those things, or he hasn't done a couple of those things. So it's okay to be critical, right? Me questioning President Trump does not make me anti-American. Me questioning our government and our leaders does not make me anti-America. It doesn't make me less of a citizen. In my opinion, it makes me a better citizen because I'm not just rolling over and taking whatever the media regurgitates and tells me. I'm not just rolling over and taking what our government elected officials tell me. I am trying to seek truth wherever I possibly can. So with that being said, Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show. They talked about a lot of different stuff, and Tucker used the opportunity to find out more about Nick as far as what he stands for, what he believes in. And of course, there were some crazy controversial things that were said that Tucker listened to and questioned Nick on, and they were able to find more about each other. But there were some people who just didn't like the fact that this interview happened at all. Now, this is where it's really, really important for me to make sure that I restate this. I am not someone who is against the Jewish people. I am not somebody who is an anti-Semite. I am not somebody who is against those people. I am not a Nazi. I am not part of the Hitler Youth. I am not a part of any of those things. Okay? A lot of the people that we are seeing on the Republican side that are calling for the cancellation of Tucker Carlson, that are currently and have for a while been calling for cancellation and deplatforming of Nick Fuentes, are people on the Republican side that are also of the Jewish faith. Now, that's not just something that I'm saying, it's something that is true. You have people like Representative Randy Fine, you have Ben Shapiro, you have people like, he's not Jewish, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham. All of these people we're going to talk about, all of them have been for a long time for the support that we as a country give to Israel, which I think is a double-edged sword. Okay? In my opinion, I think the aid that we give to Israel, okay, we give it to them. There's probably a lot of benefits that they get from it, and there's benefits that we as a country get from it. In the same breath, and I'm not ashamed to say this, I'm American first, right? America first. I believe that if we do anything, whether it's domestic or foreign policy, we always have to do it with the mindset of, how does this benefit America? Does American citizens get any benefit from this? If they do, is the juice worth the squeeze, so to put it? If I'm going to do X, is the equation pan out to where I get Y and it benefits the American people? If it does, okay. And if it's worth it, okay, do it to an extent. Do I believe we should be sending billions and billions and billions of dollars when there's so much shit happening on our actual homeland? No, I don't. I really don't. And I don't care what it is. I think if we're going to spend billions of dollars, it should be towards the American people. It should be towards fighting problems that we're having domestically, not things that are going on halfway across the world or in a small country, a large country, regardless of what is going on. If it doesn't benefit America and its policies and its citizens, we shouldn't be doing that. And I will die on that hill. I will stand on that hill, because at the end of the day, I'm an American citizen. You're an American citizen if you're listening to this. This is our country, and we should be doing stuff that is most important for us. That is what our founding fathers did. That is what they wanted us as a nation to do. Hence the reason why we started this great nation, and they started this great nation of America, because we were tired of what was going on in our home country. We decided to come here and make a better life for ourselves. With that all said, they are now calling for the cancellation of Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, which, having someone on your platform or your show does not mean that you support them in everything that they stand for. You should have the ability to have anyone on your show that you would like. You should be able to have anyone on your podcast, anybody on your news network, right? Fox News, CNN, all of these major media outlets, they have plenty of people on. They do 60-minute interviews with Vladimir Putin and other, leaders across the country that I don't agree with, that they probably don't agree 100% with. And yet we never once call for the cancellation of CNN or Fox or MSNBC. Yet they're able to have people on their platform. They're able to have people on their show. And yet now, because Tucker Carlson decided to have Nick Fuentes on his show, which Nick Fuentes has said a lot of horrible things in his life and a lot of things I don't agree with. But yet, because of that, we're now supposed to call things or call Tucker things like a Nazi. call Tucker things like the modern day leader of the Hitler Youth, which is something that Representative Randy Fine said. These are horrible, horrible things. You're not a conservative, in my opinion, if you are calling for the cancellation of someone that you disagree with. You're just not. We as conservatives, we as Americans should be able to have, and we should welcome the polite debate of differences of opinions, different ideas. Hell, the reason why I'm doing this podcast and the reason why I've gotten so inspired to the point where I finally bit the bullet and I'm doing it is because Charlie Kirk, because of him. And yet all he stood for was peaceful debate. It's okay to have differences of opinions. It's okay to disagree with each other as long as we're doing it peacefully and as long as we're having discussions. Because as he said many, many times, the moment that free speech and the moment that open dialogue dies is the moment that we cease to exist as a country. So I think it's just mind-boggling that so many people right now are calling for the cancellation of Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes while they're standing on the Republican side. So many people are against what Candice Owens is doing in her investigations of what happened to Charlie Kirk, that they're just like, well, she's a little crazy. She's having postpartum disillusions, and she's just somebody that we should just chalk up as, we shouldn't listen to her. If you want to deplatform somebody, in my opinion, you don't call that out loud. Because what you're only going to do, and what we've seen in the last couple of days since all of this has taken place, is as people call for the cancellation of Tucker Carlson, as people call for the cancellation of Candice Owens and Nick Fuentes and other people who are not agreeing to what you agree with or not, supporting what you support, as you call for their cancellation, you only give them the boost and you only push people towards their views and push people towards them even more, right? Tucker Carlson has tied close with Joe Rogan, the #1 podcast show in America. And I don't think that's by accident, right? Hell, I'd love for this podcast to be the #1 podcast in America. Do I think we're going to get there? No, right? But if I had that level of outreach and people were calling for me to be canceled, I think it would push people more towards me. I think people would be more interested in actually what I am saying and what I do stand for. So I don't believe that the Conservative Party should stoop to the level of the radical left or the crazy lunatic Democratic side of calling for the cancellation of people. I feel that if we've really gotten to that point, the horseshoe theory is probably a little bit more true than we'd like to believe. Now, for those of you who don't know, the horseshoe theory is that a horseshoe, it curves up and it almost comes together at the top. So there are people out there that believe the far right and the far left are just tips of the top of the horseshoe and are so close together that they're pretty much one and the same, right? You hear it all the time. The far right, the far left, right, left and right, they're just two wings of the same bird, which I think in the day and age that we're living, if you're paying attention to anything that's going on, it's becoming more and more transparent and more clear that that is probably truer than we would like to admit. But I don't think that we should get to the point where we are calling for the cancellation of people. And if we get to that point, I think we've just completely fallen trap to the victim mentality and to the mentality of the Democratic left. Now, there were plenty of things that were said on the podcast, plenty of things that I don't agree with. For example, Nick Fuentes said that he is a fan of Stalin. And Tucker Carlson found that to be interesting. He didn't really press him on the matter. And a lot of people called Tucker out by saying, okay, you're not going to call someone out. You're not going to criticize them or ridicule them because they like Joseph Stalin. If you really want to get hypercritical, yeah, sure. Should Tucker have asked Fuentes a little bit more in detail about what he meant? Sure. I guess that's his prerogative. I could care less what Tucker asks or doesn't ask, because guess what? It's not my show. This isn't the Tucker Carlson network. This isn't his podcast. So I just think people that are out there up in arms over this are people who, in my opinion, are losing credibility more and more day and day. So, I mean, Tucker Carlson, I have never heard him in all the years that I've been listening to him. I don't see him as an anti-Semite. I don't see him, or never have I heard him say anything that is anti-Semitic, right? But there's so many people, especially at what we're going to talk about next. There's so many at the Republican Jewish Coalition, which is a event that took place over the weekend. So many people there that said Tucker Carlson is, in fact, an anti-Semite. He is somebody that is the worst person in the world, somebody who is comparable to Hitler. And in my mind, I think it's just a horrible, horrible thing to say. So we can have difference of opinions on specific issues. That's okay. But the moment that we start to call each other names, the moment that we start to call for the deplatforming or the cancellation of each other, that's, I think, when we have major, major, major issues. Now, I want to dive deep into what happened at the Republican Jewish Coalition event. But I want to talk about a couple of specific things at this event that took place. For example, we saw some individuals speak, which, for those of you who don't know, the RJC is an annual leadership summit, usually about 150, 200 people that show up to this. And their job, or their movement, is to make sure that the Republican Party and the Jewish group of people, or the Jewish religion, are closely intertwined, working together. Now, I have my own opinions about that. I believe that that's something that shouldn't be happening, in the sense of we should be just focusing on America first. Of course, there's going to be Jewish people in our country that practice their religion, just like I practice my own religion, and I think that's fine. But I think that there are fundamental values that America has been founded on that we should not deviate from. And I believe that when we get into all of these things, like what's going on with AIPAC and the foreign aid that we provide and what they're doing in terms of lobbying for the nation of Israel, I think those are things that they're pretty dicey, and they're pretty gray areas that we should probably get a little bit more into. Now, we can talk about those at a later date, because there's so much that we could talk about. But I will just always stand strong on, we need to be a America first country. And that's being shown true even more, especially with younger Republican voters, that there are a lot more people out there that are agreeing with that sentiment, that we need to be America first. Now, all right, we got to love the hotel Wi-Fi got cut off there. But it's a good segment. We're going to break up now, and we're going to talk about what happened over the weekend at the Republican Jewish Coalition. So there's a couple clips and videos I'm going to show, but I think it's really important that we discuss what was said, how it was said, and really dive deep into why it was said. Because in my opinion, there's a lot of horrible things that were said about Tucker Carlson, horrible things that we should never be saying, regardless of what side of the political aisle that we are on. So with that being said, the first video to start us off is going to be a video by Mark Levin. If you know Mark, he is a Republican podcaster. He's got a show. You can listen to that. But this is what Mark had to say over the weekend at the Republican Jewish Coalition. So let's listen to Mark.
Haters, Churchill haters, you're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them. It's called the market system. They don't have a lifetime job like a bureaucrat who we're going to protect. And if they're your friend, there's something wrong with you. No Hitler admirer, Holocaust denier, platformer should be anybody's friend, as a matter of fact. You don't get to wrap your psychotic, mental, unhinged, Nazi, Klan, jihadist bullshit around American patriotism. You don't get to claim you're MAGA and America first when you're lining up with the Marxists and the Islamists and Hamas and the terrorists. That's not America first. That's sick.
Okay. So, just if you're just listening, I can post the link to this video. But let's just first talk about what he said. So, first and foremost, he's okay with cancel culture. He's okay with canceling people. Because if you don't stand with what he believes in, then you're obviously against him, which therefore means you're an anti-Semite and we should cancel you. Okay? This is the same Mark Levin, the same guy that stood against Trump in the 2016 election. And I mean, for example, I've got the receipts to prove it. So here we go. Here's what Mark Levin had to say about Trump during the 2016 election. I would never vote for Trump, he said. That's one story. He also said, I won't back Trump in the general. He is somebody that was the leader of the Never Trump movement. That's who Mark Levin is. Who also is Mark Levin? He's somebody that has a book about being against and standing against cancel culture and standing for freedom of speech. Here's a little excerpt from his book. Free speech is requisite to all other freedoms. It is how individuals and societies learn, reform, improve, progress, etc. It is how governments are held to account or adjust to the will of the people. So here's the same guy that said all of those great things that I believe in, right? I believe free speech. I believe that, as he says in his book, quote, every true patriot should be defending true speech. Or free speech, end quote. I believe that that's true. I'm sure many of you do. Yet this is that same guy who then gets to tell us who's MAGA and who's not, who gets to say, because you voice an opinion and because you used your freedom of speech to say something that I don't agree with, I want to cancel you. We're going to all collectively cancel you together. Because you platformed somebody on your show that you have freedom to do. You have freedom to have somebody on your show. You brought someone I don't like. So therefore, not only are you anti-Semitic, but you are probably somebody who's a Nazi, who's a Holocaust denier, who's, probably somebody who is, despicable and the dirt of this society, and someone who we just shouldn't listen to anymore, who's not MAGA. Mark Levin, you weren't MAGA from the get-go. It's the cool kid at school that, wasn't for sitting next to the nerdy boy. It wasn't his idea. He was against it at first. But then once he saw all of his friends getting around it and the nerdy kids started to grow in popularity, then Mark Levin was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I'm a part of the MAGA group too. Oh, and you're not MAGA because you said something that I don't agree with. It's hypocritical. It's insane. It's ludicrous. I can't believe that these are the people who are now calling for the cancellation of Tucker Carlson. It's crazy to me. Here's another person, Representative Randy Fine, who's from the great state of Florida. He calls Tucker and called Tucker at the Republican Jewish Coalition event over the weekend. He spoke and called Tucker Carlson the most dangerous anti-Semite in America. He calls him the leader, the modern day leader of the Hitler Youth. Do we realize? Let's stop. Just let's pause. Let's take a step back. If you disagree with me right now, pause. If you agree with me right now, pause. Let's agree on one thing. This is the same damn rhetoric that killed Charlie Kirk. Let's agree on that. If we can agree on that, then we can really peel this back layer by layer and see that our side, the Republican side, is now calling for using the same knowledge, language, and terminology that got Charlie Kirk killed. It's the same rhetoric. It's the same thing that the left was saying about Charlie Kirk, that he was a Nazi, that he was a racist, that he was somebody that we should cancel, that we should get rid of, right? You have Josh Hammer over the weekend calling for trying to pull it up here. You've got Josh Hammer over the weekend that calls for Tucker Carlson to be exterminated. Like, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. That's really, I mean, the fact that people are saying that in our country is insane, right? Josh Hammer, which if you don't know who Josh Hammer is, I mean, once again, my show, my opinion. He's vermin. He is a horrible, horrible person. He's somebody that has tried since Charlie Kirk was assassinated to make sure that we all know that Josh Hammer and Charlie Kirk were friends. When Josh Hammer was tweeting the day that Charlie Kirk was killed, that we should bring back public political assassinations. That's who Josh Hammer is. Horrible, horrible person. Look into him a little bit more. You might find some consistencies between him, Randy Fine, Mark Levin, other people that we're going to talk about today. You might find some similarities, right? He said and tweeted after he watched the whole Fuentes and Tucker Carlson conversation, he tweeted and said, the fox is now comfortably ensconced in the henhouse. And unless the fox is neutralized, the victim could be the entire extent GOP coalition itself, right? And then he has the audacity to tweet out a picture of what the word neutralized means, but yet he crops out a very important part, which is when it's used in a military terminology. Neutralized as in like kill, right? That's the friend of Charlie Kirk who's so devastated that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Yeah, bullshit. Bullshit. But yet it's the same rhetoric. People, wake up. Now we are the party that's calling for and using those same terminologies to speak out against the people that we disagree with. Let's just agree upon certain Republican principles. Let's agree upon those. If we can agree upon those principles, then we can have differencing of opinions about other things. But if we believe that marriage is between a man and a woman and that the family is sacred and is important, if we believe on the founding principles that America was founded upon, if we believe that we need to have a strong border and protect our people and our country, if we believe that we should put our American citizens first, if we believe in all of those things and many, many, many other things that are true core principles to the Republican Party, if we believe in those, we can have differences of opinions. We can disagree on some things. I'm fine with that. But yeah, if you disagree with me, like if you leave a comment at the end of this video, or if you leave a comment on one of my posts that say you disagree with me and that, you know, something I said, it doesn't sit well with you or you have a difference of opinion, fine. I'm not going to call you somebody who is an anti-Semite. I'm not going to call for your cancellation. I'm not going to report your Instagram, right? You might do that to me. Fine. Go ahead. I don't care. But the fact that that's where we're at, it's horrible. I don't think we should be doing that as a political party. I don't think we should be doing that as Americans. I think that is a very slippery slope that we've seen the left slide down. And if we want to be where they're at, take the same slide, take the same path. Representative Randy Fine, right? He's introduced many bills to criminalize anti-Semitic remarks, which infringe upon free speech. I mean, hate speech, yeah, hate speech is hate speech, but it's still protected by the First Amendment. As horrible as that sounds, that's still protected. You still have the right to say whatever you want here in America. So it's just, it's insane to me. But let's move on. There's another video that I want to show. And this one is, once again, same thing. Republican Jewish Coalition, Senator Lindsey Graham, and his remarks to the people that attended that event.
So I just want to say I feel good about the Republican Party. I feel good about where we're going as a nation. We're killing all the right people and we're cutting your taxes. Trump is my favorite president. We've run out of bombs. We didn't run out of bombs in World War II.
I mean, is that where we are as a Republican Party? Is that where we're at? Was that a Freudian slip by our good friend Lindsey Graham? We're killing the people that, like, we're killing people that are against us? Like, if you want to find yourself, Lindsey Graham, if you want to find yourself on the next episode of the Candice Owens show and be a part of her investigation into the assassination of Charlie Kirk, keep saying shit like that. That's horrible. That's horrible. We're killing people and we're lowering taxes, and that's what we're all going to laugh about and agree with, that we're just dropping bombs on people that disagree with us. To me, that points that there is truly a greater evil that is happening in our country. Now, call a spade a spade. I think there is a specific group that is a specific government that is showing its face a lot more in our country, and that we've seen a lot more as of a certain individual's assassination, that is showing up a lot more and is saying things or having moments like this where something slips. And to me, it's pretty clear. And I hope it's clear for you. We also have Lindsey Graham saying this. Here's another video for you.
Here's what I do know. You can sit in a basement with weird people and say weird things. It's a free country, right? But if you ever run for office as a Republican and you embrace this weird shit, we're going to beat your brains out.
And yet everybody claps and cheers that on because that's where we're at. That's what the Republican Jewish Coalition stands for. If you think that you can sit in your basement and you can platform people like Nick Fuentes or other people that we disagree with, if you can have friends that have weird opinions, that makes you a horrible person. It makes you somebody who we are against, and we get to call you horrible things like Nazis and part of the modern day Hitler Youth. We get to call for your cancellation. If you have any of those things or all of those things, just know that if you ever decide to run for office as a Republican, Lindsey Graham and his hammer are going to come bash your head in. That's where we're at. And yet everybody claps like the political, monkeys and zombies that they are, because ha 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 ha, that's so funny. Yet if we've seen anything recently, it's that those threats usually don't really get said or spoken out loud unless they actually will be followed through. Right? For example, let's look at Ted Cruz. What Ted Cruz has said. Ted Cruz, who is somebody that, of course, supports a lot of things that these people agree with as well. This is what Ted Cruz said before this weekend, right? They don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. Political violence is a left-wing phenomenon. Enough is enough. We need to shut it down. Well, Ted, let's see. Is political violence a left-wing phenomenon? Is it? Because your tweet after the Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes show shows us what your real thoughts are. Remember, they don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. Then, drumroll please, what did Tucker Carlson or Ted Cruz say about this most recent interview between Carlson and Fuentes. Nick Fuentes tweets, at the Republican Jewish Coalition, Ted Cruz says that he repeatedly begged Trump to bomb Iran for weeks. And then Ted Cruz says Trump's bombing the Ayatollah's nuclear facilities made the little Nazi mad. Good. What was that again, Ted Cruz? They don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. And then Ted Cruz after this weekend says the following, it made the little Nazi mad, talking about Nick Fuentes. There's a reason why there's a dissent in the Republican Party. There's a reason why the younger generation who votes Republican is growing more and more hostile towards the nation and the government of Israel. There's a reason why the older party or the older members of the Republican Party aren't really being relevant anymore to the younger party. The views of the older Republican Party members aren't really the views that the younger generation is agreeing with. And it's because Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Mark Levin, Randy Fine, they say shit like this. I think everything that we just watched is horrible. It's horrible that people clap at this. It's horrible that these are the people calling and saying that we should cancel these people, that we should deplatform them, that we should, say that they're not a part of our movement anymore. They're not a part of the MAGA movement. It's horrible. In my opinion, these are the people that are getting paid by the Israeli government to say things that are positive. These are the people that are trying to paint specific things and specific nations in such a good light so that we as younger Republicans can say, oh yeah, that makes sense. They're trying to confuse us by making a false front between what is MAGA and what is not MAGA. Meaning, if we can tell you that Tucker Carlson isn't MAGA, then that means everything that Tucker Carlson says is against Republicans and is against Trump. And remember, Trump's the good guy. Trump's the guy that we love. Trump's the president that we have to support without any shade of non-trust. We have to make sure that you know anybody who's not MAGA is somebody that you need to be against. And whatever they say is stuff that you need to be against. That is what I believe is happening. And that is why my advice to all of you is, look, take my opinion for what it's worth. It's not even worth 2 cents. But what I will say is this. For me, personally, I am going to continue to listen to Tucker Carlson. I am going to continue to listen to Nick Fuentes. I'm going to continue to listen to Candice Owens. I'm also going to continue to listen to Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro. I'm going to listen to Matt Walsh, all of these other people that I grew up listening to. Why? Because I believe that there's truth found everywhere. I believe that there is truth found within all of the major conservative Republican podcasters or influencers. I'm going to listen to social media influencers that I like Ian Wendt. I'm going to listen to, all of these people because I believe that there's truth that is found in all of them. Okay? So my recommendation to you is listen to those voices. I'm not saying you have to support those voices, but I'm saying really listen to them. Try to find truth. If you can't find truth and you've tried, okay, then you don't have to listen to them. But I think we should be so incredibly careful if we are going to find and get our opinions or get our informations from specific sources, and that's it. If you're only going to watch Fox News, you're probably going to be more against and more combatant towards the Democrats. If you're only going to listen to CNN, you're probably going to be more against the Republicans. If you only listen to Ben Shapiro, you're only going to get Ben Shapiro's take. You're only going to get what is considered Ben Shapiro's truth. If you only listen to Candice Owens, you're only going to get what is Candice Owens' truth. I believe that there should be a mix. You should be able to listen to people like Ian Carroll and not have to cancel him because he doesn't agree with everything that I agree with. I believe you should be able to listen to Nick Fuentes. And yeah, he may say some horrific things, but that doesn't mean that everything that he says isn't true. It means that everything that he says isn't a lie. It doesn't mean that you could still find some truth within that. Hell, I mean, this is something that I can share with all of you. Let me pull this up real quick. Take a March 2025 Pew poll as an example. This is an article written on October 8th, 2025, so not too long ago, about a month ago. While the survey shows strong support for Israel among GOP voters, it also reveals that more and more younger Republicans are souring on the country. 50% of GOP voters under the age of 50 expressed a negative view of Israel, compared to just 35% in 2022. These numbers line up with a number of recent polls, including an August 2025 University of Maryland Critical Issues survey, which found that just 24% of Republican voters age 18 to 34 sympathize more with Israelis than Palestinians. Why do I share that with you? Because if we're only going to get our news from one source, you're going to be swayed. You're going to believe that that source is true, that source speaks nothing but the truth, and that is what we need to follow. I don't think that should be the case. So I'm going to listen to Tucker Carlson even harder. I'm going to listen to Candice Owens even more. I'm going to listen to Nick Fuentes and try to find things that him and I agree upon even more. Because the moment that you try to tell me there's a voice in America I shouldn't listen to is the moment that I want to listen to that voice even more. My hypothesis is you will see Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Candice Owens, and other people that they're calling for us to cancel. My hypothesis is you will see those people grow more and more popular and grow their platforms even more now. I believe those people are going to be the voice of the Republican Party even more now, because so many people are waking up to, especially after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, what's going on. They're becoming more and more curious as to what's going on. And I believe that if you allow people to come in and say, don't listen to this because it's horrible, I think that's when you see people listen to that even more. Now, like I said from the beginning of this is heavy stuff to talk about. I do want to do an episode here soon about Charlie Kirk and his assassination. I do want to do an episode here soon and talk more about the government of Israel and what's going on there, because I believe we've seen even more recently that the government of Israel and our government are pretty closely tied. And I think it's important to be able to share information with all of you so you can become, what I've always said from the beginning, educated. So with that being said, once again, I appreciate you being here. Like, comment, subscribe, all of the good stuff. Share this podcast, share the clips that we post. And hopefully you got a little bit of information out of this podcast. And hey, hopefully it's something that you, in my opinion, disagree with or agree with. That's fine too. But either way, please comment, like, and share. Thank you for your patience with us this week as I am traveling. We will have another episode out on Friday, so make sure you follow us for more updates and more information that will come. But until then, we will, of course, remember that the future is something that we all build together. So thanks again for tuning in today. I'm Bryce Wheeler, and this is We the Future. We'll see you next time.